This is NewHampshireCrossCountry.com, powered by Marathon Sports, and we are here at Thetford, Vermont for the Thetford Academy Woods Trail Run course review. This is the site of the 2025 New England Championships and many more New England Championships to come. So I'm going to give you a course tour and review so you can know what's to come on the course and how to get ready for it. Now, when I review a course, I base it on 7 different categories for a total of 100 points. The first category, worth 20 points, is spacing. That's basically how wide is the course. Is it wide enough for a good race, or is it too narrow where you're being squeezed in the entire time and can't make a move past someone? Next up, worth 20 points, is the layout of the course. Basically how it weaves around the property. Does it make good use of the area, or is it kind of a weird course that doesn't make much sense? Next up, I have footing. So is it easy to make a move? Can you run easily here, or is it really annoying and could be possible injuries based on whatever's on the ground in the course? Then worth 10 points is how good it is for spectators. So does it run in a way that you can easily see your favorite runners in the course? Then next up is scenery, so how nice it is. Spoiler, this is a very good scenery course. Then next up is the X factor, so that's basically like the best part of the course, the coolest, most iconic part of the course. For this one, we're using Morty's Monster. And then the last one, worth 10 points, I'm forgetting. I'm going to include it in a second. I remembered, it's elevation. So basically, does it climb a good amount for a cross-country course? Is it too flat? If it's trying to be flat, it's a good thing. If it's trying to be a tough course, being too flat's a bad thing. If it's trying to be a hard course and it climbs a lot, that's a great thing. So basically, does the elevation fit what the course is trying to do? That's basically what it is. Now, in my opinion, there is no question this is the slowest course in New England. For reference, when I raced at the Pancake Flat New Hampshire Media Champions, and then 1 week later came here to race in New England's, I was about 2 minutes slower. So that's a huge difference. Now, I ran a worse race here, but still, it is a massive difference from a flat course. It's very, very challenging. All right, time to start the run. So this is the opening field, and you make your way out towards the woods. It's decently large. I guess you can kind of imagine the size of a soccer field as we're making our way up here. So here's a peek back at where we came from. So that's the opening field. Now, I'll be honest, it's not very large. Of the New England Championship courses, this is probably the smallest opening field. From my experience racing here when I was in high school, it was a very small starting line, so it's very hard to get out. I would say on this course, and honestly in any New England Championships, the most important thing is getting out at the start of the race. So now, just after the start, we're making our way towards the woods, kind of around this bump here, and it definitely narrows down very quickly. We're gonna be about maybe 300 meters into the race when we enter the woods, and already it gets down to a pretty small trail. You have to be in your spot by, we're 0.17 miles in, that's about 300 meters or so. In general, it's been very dry recently, so the course is looking great, but when it comes to late October, early November, by that point, it gets very, very muddy, especially once there have been a lot of races on here. Now, throughout this opening mile, it's a lot of up, a lot of down. Once you get, through the bottleneck, it's actually fairly wide for a cross-country course. A little bit of pavement you cross right there just to be aware of. And then you continue on this dirt hard packed trail. Yeah, there's really no flat section of this as we head down here and then back up this small hill on this side. I'm a half mile in now, and as you can see, it's kind of wide, but it's not amazingly wide. And at this point, the pace is still going to be hot, so you got to make sure you're in position, because otherwise you're going up over this kind of stuff, and that's not fun to try to pass somebody. So definitely get out, because trying to get around anyone is very, very challenging on this course. As we approach another small hill, but these small hills definitely add up. Here's a sign for 1K into the race. Now here's another small hill. A lot of these hills are not terribly long. They're pretty short, and then you get another downhill, but once again, they're just always going up or down. Also, this course, while it has many rolling hills, it also has a lot of turns. Approaching the mile mark, and you're making your way back towards the opening fields, it does get a bit nicer. And there's the 1 mile right here. Once again, you're gonna cross over this little road here. Probably a good spot where your coaches are gonna be. And you are almost back towards the fields and heading towards halfway through this race. As we pass 2K. So at the very start, in the first quarter mile, you came through here and did a loop around there. Now you're coming back down this path and heading back towards the fields. Now you're back in the fields as we're approaching halfway. And you're heading off towards the hillier section of the woods. That's not to say the first half was not hilly. The first half is definitely hilly, but the second half is worse. If you have some grass for a minute, it's a good place to make some moves past people when you have the chance. But remember, you might want to hold back a little bit, because everyone's going to be suffering later on. Heading up this section of hills. All right, so we've looped around the back here, and now we're about to head back into the woods. You've got this short and steep little downhill, and you'd head back across here, and there'll be a lot more markings during the race, but for me, I'm following these signs here. And now we're heading back into the woods and off towards the infamous Morty's Monster. You can see on this open stretch here, we got some good elevation. And the course, when dry, has awesome footing. But when it's wet, it is not good. This place gets muddy very easily. All right, so now we're at 3K. And we are heading around here, past this road again. Once again, you might see your coach running along this. It passes this road a few times. And you've got this long stretch. But we start climbing now, approaching the 2 mile mark. All right, and there's 2 miles. So far, we are through 2 miles of this race, and it's been rolling hills so far. Decently good footing, except if it's wet and muddy. Now, ahead of us is the 3rd mile, which is the hardest mile on the course. Maybe it's the hardest mile of any course in New England. All right, and there's the sign. Morty's Monster begins here. We are just after 2 miles, and it starts climbing. Now you've got a thin gravel path here, or some room on the left side. It's definitely wide here, but if you want the best line, I would say stick on the gravel. And it just keeps climbing. It's never too steep, but it's very, very long. Definitely a killer 2 miles into a race. Whew. This is not easy. Still making our way up. All right, and now we are at the top and it turns. All right, Morty's Monster is about 300 meters deep in the backwoods of Thetford. And now we head off this way. And now my biggest piece of advice, this is something that kind of killed me when I raced here. Once you crest Morty's Monster, do not get into the mindset that the race is over. The race almost begins here because it's a mad dash to kind of go down the hills and through all the rollers to get towards the finish line. You got to attack after Morty's Monster. That's where your guys are going to feel the worst. So that's my advice. Attack after Morty's Monster. So we are atop Morty's Monster. It was about 300 meters until we turned into the woods there. Now here's the biggest thing I can tell you. My biggest piece of advice from something I learned from my 2 races here in high school. Once you crest Morty's Monster, the race is not even close to over. There's a lot of hard stuff coming up. You've got to attack because a lot of people are going to be letting up after Morty's Monster. If you can keep pressing, you're going to be in a great spot to finish hard. So don't think the race is over once you crest Morty's Monster. In one way, it's almost just beginning. As you can see, we are atop Morty's Monster. We just crested it, and we're still going up. It's going to go downhill in a second, but this is going to be the worst part. You're going to be very tired from Morty's Monster, and the rest of the race, you just want to go downhill, and it keeps going up. But finally, you get here, and it's a big downhill. Now that downhill is great, but it doesn't last forever. You can see we keep going up again. You gotta stay focused. We get some more downhill. As we're weaving our way towards the finish of this race. Now in general, it's more downhill than uphill for this last mile or so after you finish Morty's Monster. But that in no way means there is no uphill. There's a lot of uphill. So don't fall asleep. Here's 4K as we keep going over the rolling hills in the woods. You've got some nice downhill here. Definitely a place to increase your pace. And you can get moving here if you know how to descend. This is probably the fastest single section on the course, right after 4K. Now from the 4K, as you head back towards the fields, you got about a quarter mile of straight downhill. So utilize that. But once you're through this quarter mile, at this point, we've still got more than a quarter mile to go. And we're basically on the level of the finish line now. So there is still climbing to do. It's not downhill anymore. Now you're out here and you're making your way along these back fields. You can hear the crowd at the finish line, but you've still got over a quarter mile to go. It's beautiful, but it's hard. You've got to keep pressing. Once you get to the end of the soccer fields, you're basically starting your descent at this point. And this descent is gonna hurt a lot because obviously you're at the very end of a tough race, but you're making your way down towards the finish, going along these fields here. From my experience, I kind of lost contact here because I figured the climbing's done, the race is basically over, but you've got a kick here. You have a lot of downhill you can use for your kick. So definitely attack, attack, attack. Especially here because we are coming to the home stretch. You make your way back out towards the field where we started, and you're running behind the starting line, if you recognize that from the start of the video. And you come behind here and you make the famous right turn and sprint your way in to the finish of the race. Somewhere around here. Congratulations, you have finished the Thetford course. All right, so now you've seen the course, time for a few post-run thoughts. So I think the biggest thing I want to clarify, which I said in the video, is that when you reach the top of Morty's Monster, the race is nowhere near over. You still have almost a mile to go. It's a lot of downhill, but it's also some rolling uphills as well. It's not easy. You've got to keep your focus and fight all the way to the finish, because when I ran this course, I didn't. So that's my advice to you. Otherwise, honestly, it's one of my least favorite courses in New England, just because I never ran well here. But I admit it's a really awesome course. It's really pretty, great trails. It gets very muddy, so be aware of that. But otherwise, the climbing's awesome. The woods are great. Everything about this course is really what a good cross-country course should be. So let's get to the scoring. So first off is the layout. This is an interesting one because Thetford's very different from other courses where it is unique in the fact that it does not cross itself at any point during the race. So a lot of cross-country courses do loops and kind of go back to the loops they were already on. This one is just one long winding line where you end up back at the same spot you started. So that's a bit different from most courses. I like it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I prefer at least a little bit of looping, but it's kind of cool. It doesn't rely on the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to give it a 16 out of 20 for the layout of the course. All right, next up is the spacing. This is a big one for the starting line because that's really the most important part of a race where it can kind of determine within seconds how you're going to finish. If you get a good start, you're golden. If you get a bad start, you're kind of screwed. There's no getting around that. You really got to get out. So spacing is definitely going to be the worst part of this course. Just because of the starting line, it's a very small starting area and it gets down to the woods pretty quickly. I'm going to give this a 11 out of 20 for the spacing. Because once you're actually in the woods and you get into position, it's actually pretty nice. But just the start really kills it. So that's my biggest critique in the course. Next up is the footing. For late in the season, if there's been a lot of rain, it can get very bad with footing because of the mud. That's not fun. Otherwise, it's a really good course. Really nice footing, really good. I'm going to give this a 15 out of 20 for the footing, just because it can get really muddy, but if it's not muddy, it's awesome. So it's kind of a balance between the good and the bad there. Is 15 out of 20. Next up is the elevation. I don't have the exact data with me right now, but I'll put it up there or something like that. But elevation 10 out of 10. Awesome course, great elevation, lots of climbing, lots of descending. It's meant to be a hard course and the elevation certainly shows that. So great with the elevation. Scenery. This is a 10 out of 10 scenery course. You've got plenty of good views. The woods are beautiful. When you get into the fields at the end, you've got sweeping views across the entire area. It's great. I love the scenery in this course. So that's a 10 out of 10 as well. Spectators. I would say it's a 9 out of 10 for spectators. The reason I say that is because a lot of the race happens in the woods, but you can still see them 3 to 4 times if you're just staying in the fields. And especially with the road that runs kind of through the first loop there, you can see them a good number of times. So yeah, it's good. You don't see them a ton during the race, but it's not bad at all. So I would say 9 out of 10 for that. The X Factor of Morty's Monster. How iconic is it? How cool is it? How hard is it? This is a 9 out of 10 X Factor. I think it would be kind of cooler if you could kind of get to a point where you're seeing a sweeping view at the top. It's more of all in the woods, but it's a very hard climb, especially that deep into the race, and just kind of an epic atmosphere. Great X Factor. So I would say it's 9 out of 10. Just wish it had slightly better views of the area. It's kind of tucked away in the back, but still a very cool spot. So 9 out of 10. All right, so overall it's an 80 out of 100. So I guess a B minus. I wouldn't put too much stock into that because you gotta, there's always gonna be something about a course that brings it down a little bit. It's a great course. This is a really fun course. Very fun place to have a championship race. Definitely tough at the start, but otherwise it's an epic atmosphere with a lot of climbing, some cool hills, great scenery, just in general an awesome course. So go enjoy New England's. Best of luck, and feel free to ask any questions to me or to anyone else who's probably more qualified than I am to talk about this course, because it's really an exciting place to be, and hopefully you race well here. So good luck.